to be somebody with some data protection qualifications. So all I can say is, like, before I close up, is that let's know our data rights, data subject rights, and let's also, for those who are interested, make sure DPO, this is also a field where we can actually build our skills around. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Talk. Maybe before you go, Madam Chair, I will just take 2 comments since the data protection is a new...
And we have an officer. Amanda, are you here? Our first recruit in the data protection office is Amanda. She's our data protection enforcement officer. So some of the questions, I'll throw them to her. Get ready.
Yeah, my name is Shupi from Airtel. She kept on mentioning my name. Thank you so much, Toko, for the beautiful presentation. But I just wanted you to comment on areas whereby sometimes, as data processors like Airtel or the banks, they don't need to get consent from the customers. This is as part of investigations whereby we are served with court orders by the police, or even notice of investigation by the ABC. Thank you. SCB rather. Thank you.
I saw hands this side. 1, 2.
I'm going to pose my question based on what you presented on the issues of data access. My question is, say for example, I go on MACRA page on Facebook. The data there is public, for example, for this conference, and I get the videos there, say, for this conference, and I use them for my own whatever. What does the law say about that? Is MACRA at fault, or is me at fault because the data there is public? What do you say about that?
I just want to find out about the right to access of the information, on more especially on the mobile departments, because you find out that one person will register a card maybe several times. Did you consider that on the laws, that maybe if you register once, you cannot also register again? But in nowadays, you find that one person will have maybe 7 cards using the same data that you provided to the service providers.
Let's take those ones.
Thank you so much. I'll start with the last one. The way I'll start is by saying that registering cards, so many cards, I think is not covered under the Data Protection Act. That's a different regulation altogether. That's to do with SIM card registration. It's outside the scope of this particular act that I was talking about. But there's a SIM card registration. I'll refer you to Mr. Mlenga. Are you here? I hope he will be here, but he will be making a presentation tomorrow. You can be able to pose that question to him. There's a SIM card registration that restricts, that are proposing the number of cards that one can actually register. But that has nothing to do with the Data Protection Act. That's conduct. The processing here will be just the act of the person who's actually collecting the data. Is he allowed to collect the data? So you see it's a part of SIM card registration, which is a legal requirement. So they're allowed to collect, but the restricting part, it's another subject area altogether. And I think I had, if we could go back to my presentation, I think I had skipped one slide, which is talking about some exemptions. I think it's in red. The bullets in red, it was at the very beginning somehow. If you could put up my slide again.
I think Section 34 of your Act exempts the judiciary from these provisions.
Yes, it's there. It's on my presentation. That's why I wanted it to to boom it. It's not only that, there are quite a number of exemptions that are there. Even if you're processing for domestic use, it is also an exemption under the Data Protection Act. For investigations, it is also an exemption under the Data Protection Act. There are certain times, one thing I should have emphasized on, thank you so much for that reminder, I had already said that it is founded on the right to privacy. The right to privacy is not absolute. It can be restricted by laws and other things as long as it's something that is legitimate and actually passes Section 44 of the Constitution. So it's not like because we are saying you have these rights and other things that they are absolute rights. I should make it very clear. They are also subject to certain restrictions. So like the investigation that should be mentioned, yes, that definitely, they don't have to get consent from you. Yeah. But again, you remember I said the 6, you can actually say that I gave it because the law requires me to do this. So it is justified, but it is also provided there as a justification. And I think the other thing, another exception under the DPA is where the data subject has made his personal information public. And if it is already something that is public, a data controller cannot be held to be responsible for something that is already public. That is also an exception under the Data Protection Act. And thank you, Madam, for that question. Again, there's one other thing that I need to emphasize on. When I was talking about the processing, sometimes we don't see the level of processing, how far-reaching this act is. Pictures. I think the one thing that should have happened every time if you are taking public pictures, nowadays, it's actually recommended that you notify the group that these pictures will be made public. Do you consent to that being public? If you do not, then you should choose to stay away from those pictures. That's part of processing as well. So if it is posted somewhere and it has been made public and the people accepted to be in that picture, then if somebody takes it again and it's something that is already public and consent was gotten for. But the key is always making sure that the public knows that the pictures will be posted. Your pictures will be posted.
But you didn't get our consent.
Yeah. So another thing is my CCTV, my organizations, ambida makadi my CCTV. Make sure you have posters at the before the person enters, that they know that the cameras, because what you are processing is personal data. But that is kwambi talking companies we haven't started enforcing the Data Protection Act, I should say, because we are just in the we are setting up the department and other things, and we're doing a lot of awareness because we don't want to take people unawares. So right now we are not enforcing the Data Protection Act. But in future, it's a must that things have to happen. Panopo, we are in the process of awareness because there are a lot of people, companies and individuals who do not know the extent or the impact of the Data Protection Act.
On the concept of reposting, if you repost something, then you must repost legally, not for illegal means. Because sometimes people will repost for ill-intentioned purposes or illegality. So if it's for illegality, you would not have the protections that you would be looking for. But if you post for saying I was attending or so-and-so was there and it was inspiring for them to have said this, then that's okay. But when you have to do things for an illegality, then you will not be protected, even though that information was public.